Welcome to Storytales. Please like this video and subscribe to Storytales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Brad Connor prided himself on routine. Every morning followed the same precise pattern. Wake at 5:30 a.m., gym until 7 o'clock, shower, dress, breakfast, and out the door by 8:15. Routine meant control, and control meant success. At 35, he'd built his life on that foundation. A successful career in corporate finance, a beautiful home in an upscale neighborhood, and what he'd thought was a solid marriage. That Tuesday morning in October started like any other. Brad finished his shower, wrapped a towel around his waist, and reached for his electric razor. The bathroom trash caught his eye, something blue peeking through the tissues. He wouldn't have noticed it if he hadn't dropped his toothbrush cap. "What the hell?" he muttered, crouching down. His fingers trembled as he extracted the small plastic stick, his mind already racing ahead to the implications. A pregnancy test. Positive. Two clear blue lines that shouldn't be possible. 3 months ago, he'd undergone a vasectomy at a private clinic 2 towns over. The decision had come after watching his older brother Tony lose everything in a brutal divorce and custody battle. "Get snipped," Tony had advised over beers. "Lisa trapped me with her second kid. Claimed she was on the pill." Brad had taken the advice to heart, telling no one, not even Caro now, standing in their en-suite bathroom with damning evidence in his hand. That secret decision had revealed an even darker one, that the shower started running in the master bathroom. Brad could hear Kara humming that same annoying Stevie Nicks song she'd been obsessed with lately. When had that started? July? August? Around the same time, she'd begun working late on special projects at her marketing firm. His mind raced through recent memories, recontextualizing every strange moment, every odd behavior. The new perfume she claimed was a gift from her coworker Jenny. The sudden password changes on her phone. "Oh, IT at work is making us update everything monthly now." The way she'd stopped initiating intimacy. Always too tired or stressed from work, that Brad's hand clenched around the pregnancy test, plastic creaking under his grip. A memory surfaced. Last month's neighborhood barbecue at the Ward's house. Darren manning the grill, Kara offering to help him. Both of them disappearing into the house for more supplies for just a few minutes too long. The sound of the shower shutting off snapped Brad back to reality. He quickly wrapped the test in toilet paper and tucked it into his suit jacket pocket. His reflection in the mirror looked unchanged. Same sharp jawline, same steel gray eyes, same meticulously maintained physique. But something had shifted inside him, something fundamental and irreversible. "Honey?" Kara's voice called from the master bathroom. "Can you start the coffee? I'm running a bit late." Brad stared at the closed door, separating them. The woman on the other side, his wife of 8 years, was a stranger. A liar. A traitor. Already on it. He called back, his voice steady despite the rage building in his chest. "Act normal. Gather evidence. Plan carefully." "Did I in the kitchen?" Brad went through the motions of their morning routine. Coffee maker humming, 2 travel mugs ready. Kara liked hers with vanilla creamer and 2 sugars. He'd memorized how she took her coffee on their 3rd date, determined to be the perfect boyfriend. The perfect husband. His phone buzzed with a text from Tony. "Drinks tonight? Lisa's lawyer is trying to modify the custody agreement again." Brad typed back, "Can't. Something's come up." He hesitated, then added, "But I'll need your lawyer's number soon." "Shit, little brother. Call me later," Brad replied, then silenced his phone as Kara's heels clicked down the hallway. She entered the kitchen in a cloud of that new perfume, wearing the red dress she claimed she'd bought on sale. Brad wondered now if it had been a gift. From him. From Darren. "You're the best," Kara smiled, accepting her travel mug. She reached up to straighten his tie, a gesture that used to make his heart warm. Now it took everything in him not to recoil from her touch. "Don't forget we have dinner with Mom tonight. 7 o'clock. Actually," Brad kept his voice casual as he picked up his briefcase, "I need to work late. Reynolds' account needs attention before the quarter ends." "Oh," was that relief that flashed across her face? "Maybe we can reschedule for tomorrow?" "Maybe." Brad allowed himself to really look at her then. Kara Connor, née Mitchell, 32 years old. Strawberry blonde hair falling in perfect waves. green eyes that he'd once thought could never lie to him, a small freckle just below her left ear that he used to kiss every morning. She was beautiful. She was pregnant with another man's child. She was planning to pass that child off as his. "Have a great day, honey," she called as he headed for the door. Brad didn't answer. He climbed into his Tesla, a recent purchase they'd celebrated with champagne, and pulled out of the driveway. But instead of turning left toward his office, he turned right. Time to put in for that emergency dental appointment and do some real investigation. That eye in his pocket. The pregnancy test felt like it was burning through the paper, through his jacket, branding him with the truth of her betrayal. But Brad didn't let himself feel the pain. Not yet. First would come the evidence. Then the planning, then the revenge. Brad parked his Tesla 2 blocks from their house, positioning it where he could observe the driveway without being noticed. The neighborhood was quiet at this hour, most people already at work or busy with their daily routines. He checked his watch. 9:45 a.m. Kara's mother usually visited on Tuesdays, arriving precisely at 10 to help with the gardening. Brad had always suspected these weekly meetings involved more gossip than gardening. His phone buzzed again. Tony's name flashed on the screen, followed by 3 messages. "Call my lawyer. She can see you today." "What happened?" "Don't do anything stupid, little brother." Brad smiled grimly. Tony meant well, but he'd handled his divorce all wrong, letting emotions cloud his judgment, making rash decisions. Brad wouldn't make the same mistakes. He typed back a quick response, "Following your advice. We'll call later." A silver Mercedes pulled into his driveway, Janet Mitchell's car. Brad's jaw clenched as he watched his mother-in-law emerge, designer gardening gloves already on her hands. The woman who'd never thought he was good enough for her daughter was about to become an unwitting source of information. Brad slipped out of his car and moved through the back alley that ran behind their row of houses. The Hendersons' privacy fence provided perfect cover as he approached his own backyard. He could hear voices drifting from the patio, Janet's distinctive laugh, followed by Kara's voice. "Didn't come home last night?" Janet was saying, "Didn't come home last night?" Janet was saying, "No, another late meeting." Kara's tone carried a note of guilt that Brad had previously missed. "It's better this way. Gives me time to figure out how to handle this." "Have you told Darren about the baby?" Brad's fingers dug into the wooden fence. There it was, confirmation of what he'd already suspected. Darren Ward, their neighbor, their friend, the man who'd borrowed Brad's golf clubs last month and commented on how lucky Brad was to have such a beautiful wife. "He knows?" Kara's voice dropped lower, forcing Brad to strain to hear. "He's freaking out. Says Maggie's been asking questions about his late nights at the office." "Men," Janet scoffed. "They never think about consequences. But sweetheart, you need to focus on your plan. Have you scheduled the first ultrasound?" "Next week. I'll tell Brad about the pregnancy this weekend. He'll be so excited about becoming a father that he won't question anything." The casual way they discussed deceiving him made Brad's blood run cold. 8 years of marriage reduced to a convenient cover story. "What about Darren's wife?" Janet asked. "That nosy little mouse is always watching everyone's business." "Maggie's clueless," Kara replied, but she didn't sound entirely convinced. "She's too busy with her charity work and those book clubs. Besides, Darren says she'd never suspect him. She still thinks he's the same devoted husband she married in college." Brad filed away this information. Maggie Ward, potential ally or potential complication. "You needed more data?" "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up, Mom," Kara continued, her voice cracking slightly. "The morning sickness, the lying. Sometimes I catch Brad looking at me, and I wonder if he suspects something." "Don't be ridiculous." Janet dismissed her daughter's concerns. "Brad's always been simple, predictable. That's why you married him, remember? Stability, security, the kind of man who'd make a good father. And he will be to this baby and any others that come along." Their laughter felt like acid in Brad's veins. Simple, predictable. The words echoed in his mind as he silently moved away from the fence and back toward his car. They thought they knew him so well. They were about to learn how wrong they were back in his Tesla. Brad pulled out his laptop and accessed their home security system. He'd installed the cameras himself, something else Kara had mocked as overly cautious. Now he downloaded the last 3 months of footage, paying special attention to the days when he'd been working late. The footage revealed patterns he'd been too trusting to notice. Darren's black BMW pulling into their driveway minutes after Brad left for work. Kara and Darren entering the house together on days she claimed to be working from home. Quick kisses in the shadows of the garage that Brad's fingers flew across the keyboard as he documented everything. Dates, times, duration of visits. Each entry another nail in the coffin of his marriage. He thought about the vasectomy, his secret insurance policy that had now become a smoking gun. The irony might have made him laugh if rage wasn't burning through his veins. Next, he accessed their shared cloud storage. Kara had always been careless with technology, using the same password for everything. Their anniversary date. The photos synced from her phone told their own story. Hidden in a folder labeled Work Projects were dozens of images. Darren and Kara at hotels. Intimate messages screenshot from their phones. Selfies taken in places Brad recognized from their own dates. "You stupid, arrogant bastards," Brad muttered, downloading everything to an encrypted drive. They thought themselves so clever, so discreet. They hadn't counted on his attention to detail, his methodical nature, the very qualities they mocked. His phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Dinner with Janet, 7 p.m. Brad deleted it, along with every other shared calendar event. Then he opened his banking app and began the process of securing his assets. Joint accounts would be trickier, but he had time. They thought he was at work, predictably grinding away at his desk while they plotted to make him raise another man's child. A new email notification popped up from Kara's work account to their shared home email. "Don't forget to pick up my prescription from Dr. Anderson's office. Love you, Dr. Anderson," their family doctor. Brad's hands tightened on the steering wheel as he realized the implications. She'd been using their shared medical insurance for prenatal care, creating a paper trail that linked him to the pregnancy. One more deliberate step in their plan to trap him, that he started the car and pulled away from the curb, mind racing through his next moves. First stop, his lawyer's office to begin divorce proceedings. Then the bank to secure his separate accounts. Finally, a visit to Dr. Anderson's office. It was time to get his own copy of those medical records, proof that would come in handy during the divorce. As he drove, Brad's phone continued to buzz with messages from Tony. His brother meant well, but he didn't understand. This wasn't going to be a messy, emotional divorce like his had been. This was going to be a precision strike, calculated, devastating, and absolutely final. The pregnancy test sat in his jacket pocket, physical proof of their betrayal. Soon, it would become the first piece of evidence in a carefully orchestrated campaign of destruction. Kara and Darren thought they were writing a love story. Brad was about to show them they were actually starring in a revenge thriller. The downtown medical plaza loomed before Brad, its glass exterior reflecting the late morning sun. He adjusted his tie, squared his shoulders, and entered through the revolving doors. The security guard nodded at him. Brad had accompanied Kara to enough appointments here to be a familiar face. "Mr. Connor," the receptionist greeted him with a smile. "Mrs. Connor isn't scheduled today, is she?" "No, Jenny." Brad returned her smile, projecting casual confidence. "Just need to pick up some test results." Dr. Anderson's office. 6th floor. "You know the way." In the elevator, Brad checked his phone. 3 missed calls from Kara, 2 from Janet. They'd be wondering why he wasn't at work. His boss had already approved his emergency dental work leave, another advantage of being the reliable one, the predictable one. People never question your story when you'd spent years building trust. Dr. Anderson's waiting room smelled of antiseptic and artificial flowers. The receptionist looked up from her computer. "Can I help you?" "Bradley Connor. My wife called about picking up her prescription." He kept his voice steady, pleasant. "While I'm here, I'd like a copy of our recent records for our files." "Of course." She tapped at her keyboard. "Insurance purposes?" "Exactly." Brad watched as she pulled up their information. Better to be prepared, right? 10 minutes later, he walked out with a manila envelope containing copies of everything. Lab results, doctor's notes, ultrasound appointments. Each page another piece of evidence, another nail in their coffin. His next stop was across town at Western Union. He approached the counter, paid cash, and sent a money transfer to himself at a different location. A paper trail, but one that couldn't be traced to his final destination. Then he visited 3 different ATMs, withdrawing the maximum amount from each. Cash meant freedom. Cash meant options at a strip mall on the outskirts of town. Brad found what he needed: a prepaid phone purchased with cash. He activated it in the parking lot, then drove to a small post office he'd never used before. The postal worker barely glanced at him as he bought an envelope and stamps. Brad carefully packaged the pregnancy test and wrote Maggie Ward's address in block letters. No return address. Inside, he included a note with his burner phone number and 3 words that would shatter her world as thoroughly as his had been shattered: "They're having babies." As he dropped the envelope into the mail slot, Brad felt a shift in the universe. The point of no return. Soon, Maggie Ward would know everything, and then the real work would begin. His phone buzzed again. Kara calling. This time he answered. "Brad? Where are you?" "The office said you had a dental emergency." "Did they?" He kept his voice neutral, distant. "How's your morning been?" "Fine, busy with that new campaign." "Are you okay?" "You sound strange." "Strange?" Brad watched a young couple walk past his car, holding hands. "Maybe I'm just tired. All those late nights at work, you know." A pause. He could almost hear her mind racing. "What does that mean?" "Nothing. Everything. Maybe you should ask Darren." The sharp intake of breath on the other end confirmed everything. "Brad, don't bother." His voice remained calm, controlled. "I know about the baby, Kara. I know everything. Please, let me explain." 8 years. Brad cut her off. 8 years of marriage, and you were going to let me raise another man's child. Were you ever going to tell me? Or was I just supposed to be the good, simple husband who never questioned anything? It's not like that. Kara's voice cracked. "I love you, Brad. We can work this out. Please come home." "Home?" Brad laughed, and the sound held no humor. "That house stopped being home the moment you turned it into your private love nest with Darren. Tell your mother I won't make it to dinner tonight. Or any other night." He ended the call and blocked her number. Then he blocked Janet's number, and for good measure, he blocked every member of Kara's family. The time for talking was over. His burner phone vibrated a text from an unknown number. "Package received. Meeting still on for tomorrow. Maggie." She must have gotten the express delivery he'd sent yesterday. Brad typed back, "Coffee shop on 5th. 10 a.m. Come alone." "I will. I have things to show you." Brad started his car, mind already racing with possibilities. Maggie Ward, the quiet, bookish wife who ran charity events and hosted book clubs. Everyone underestimated her, just like they underestimated him. Together, they might be capable of things neither Kara nor Darren had thought possible. His phone buzzed one final time. A text from Kara. "Whatever you think you know, you're wrong. Please come home. We could talk about this. I love you." Brad deleted the message without responding. Love. What a convenient shield for betrayal. What an easy excuse for lies. Well, he had learned his lesson about love. Now it was time for justice. The sun was setting as he pulled into the hotel parking lot. He'd chosen this place carefully, expensive enough to be discreet, far enough from their social circle to avoid recognition. Tomorrow, he would meet Maggie and begin planning their revenge. Tonight, he would review the evidence he'd gathered and prepare for war. As he swiped the key card to his room, Brad allowed himself a small smile. Kara and Darren thought they had written the perfect story. The passionate affair, the surprise pregnancy, the convenient husband who would raise their child without question. But they had forgotten something crucial. Every story has a twist, and this one was about to take a very dark turn. The coffee shop on 5th Street was exactly the kind of place Kara would never visit. No artisanal beans, no fancy latte art, just strong coffee and people who minded their own business. Brad arrived 20 minutes early, choosing a corner booth with a clear view of both entrances. He ordered black coffee and watched the door. Maggie Ward walked in at precisely 10 a.m., and Brad had to suppress a smile at her punctuality. She looked different away from their neighborhood, sharper somehow, without the soft cardigans and gentle smile she wore at book club meetings. Today she wore a crisp black blazer, her dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. She carried a leather briefcase that looked more suited for a courtroom than a coffee shop. Brad stood as she approached, years of ingrained manners kicking in. "Mrs. Ward." "Mr. Connor?" Her voice was steady, but he could see the tension in her jaw. Shall we skip the pleasantries? Please. He gestured to the seat across from him. Coffee. I've had enough, thanks. She placed a briefcase on the table between them. I believe we have matters to discuss. A waitress approached, but Maggie's cold stare sent her retreating. Once they were alone again, she opened her briefcase and removed a thick manila folder. First, she said, I want to thank you for the package. It was illuminating, though not entirely surprising. She spread several photographs across the table. I've been conducting my own investigation for months. Brad leaned forward, examining the images. Credit card statements showing hotel charges. Restaurant receipts. Photos taken from distance showing Darren and Kara entering various establishments together. The timestamps matched perfectly with his own evidence. How long have you known? He asked. Suspected? Since June. Known for certain? August. Maggie's fingers traced the edge of a receipt. Darren got sloppy. Started using our joint credit card for their little rendezvous. He thought I never checked the statements because he handles our finances. Brad nodded, recognizing the pattern. They think we're simple. Predictable. Yes. A sharp smile crossed Maggie's face. The dutiful wife, too busy with her charity work to notice her husband's wandering eye. The reliable husband, too focused on his career to question his wife's late nights. They built their affair on our supposed blindness. And now, Brad prompted. Maggie reached into her briefcase again, producing a sleek laptop. Now we show them exactly how wrong they were. She opened it, turning the screen toward him. I hired a private investigator 3 weeks ago. These are from last Friday. The video quality was excellent. Brad watched as Darren and Kara emerged from an upscale hotel downtown, sharing a lingering kiss before parting ways. The timestamp showed 2:47 p.m. during a time when Kara had claimed to be at a client meeting. There's more, Maggie continued, her voice clinical. Bank statements showing large withdrawals. A secret email account. A disposable phone he thought I didn't know about. But the pregnancy that I didn't know about. That changes everything. They're planning to pass it off as mine, Brad said, the words tasting bitter. I had a vasectomy 3 months ago. Never told Kara. Maggie's eyebrows rose slightly, the first sign of surprise she'd shown. Smart. Very smart. Does anyone else know? My brother. And now you. Brad pulled out his own folder, sharing the medical records he'd collected. They've been using our health insurance for her prenatal care. Creating a paper trail. Of course they have. Maggie's laugh held no humor. They think they're so clever. Playing house with our lives, our reputations, our futures. She paused, studying him. The question is, Mr. Connor, what do you intend to do about it? Brad met her gaze steadily. I intend to destroy them. Completely. Professionally. Socially. Financially. But I can't do it alone. No, she agreed. You can't. Fortunately, she pulled out another folder, this one filled with legal documents. I've been preparing for this moment. Darren thinks he's protected his assets. He doesn't know that I've been documenting everything. Every lie. Every betrayal. Every dollar spent on their affair. You want revenge too? Brad observed. Revenge? Maggie considered the word. No, Mr. Connor. I want justice. I want consequences. I want them to feel every ounce of pain they've inflicted on us, magnified until it shatters their carefully constructed fantasy world. She laid out more documents, property deeds, investment accounts, business records. Darren built his reputation on trust. Family man, community leader, successful businessman. What happens to that reputation when everyone learns the truth? And Kara's up for promotion, Brad added, pulling out his own records. Senior marketing director. She's been working on it for months. Her perfect image is everything. Then we take it all? Maggie's voice hardened. Their careers, their reputations, their futures. We strip away every lie they've used to justify their betrayal. Brad nodded slowly, seeing the possibilities unfold. We need a plan, something systematic, something they won't see coming until it's too late. Already working on it? Maggie opened a new document on her laptop. 3 phases. First, we gather everything, every scrap of evidence, every possible weapon we can use against them. Second, we prepare our legal positions. And third, her smile turned predatory. We destroy them. Publicly. Completely. Irrevocably. Why are you sharing this with me? Brad asked, though he already suspected the answer. You could destroy Darren on your own. Because they did this together, Maggie replied simply. They chose to betray us together. They planned their perfect little future together. It's only fitting that we destroy them together. Brad considered her words, seeing the elegant logic. Together, they had resources, evidence, and motivation that neither possessed alone. Together, they could orchestrate a revenge so complete that Kara and Darren would never recover. Partners then? He extended his hand across the table, but Maggie's grip was firm, her eyes cold with determination. Partners. Now let's begin. They spent the next 2 hours planning, their coffee growing cold and forgotten. Brad shared his findings about Kara's prenatal appointments, while Maggie detailed Darren's financial vulnerabilities. They cross-referenced dates, matched evidence, and began constructing a timeline of betrayal that would become their roadmap to revenge. As the lunch crowd began filtering into the coffee shop, they packed away their evidence and stood to leave. Brad noticed Maggie's wedding ring was already gone. One last thing, she said, pulling out a burner phone identical to his. New secure line. We can't risk them tracking our communications. Brad programmed the number into his own burner phone. Tomorrow then? Tomorrow. I'll start on the financial documentation. You focus on the evidence from your house. Anything that proves the timeline of their affair. They parted ways without another word, each heading to their separate vehicles. As Brad started his car, his regular phone buzzed with another message from Kara. Please come home. Whatever you think you know, it's not what it seems. I love you. He showed the message to Maggie, who had paused beside his window. She read it and smiled, a cold, dangerous expression that transformed her entire face. They really have no idea what's coming, do they? No, Brad agreed, deleting the message. They don't. He watched Maggie drive away, her taillights disappearing into traffic. In less than 24 hours, his entire world had shifted on its axis. The faithful husband was gone, replaced by something harder, colder, more dangerous. Kara and Darren had written themselves a love story. He and Maggie were about to turn it into a nightmare. The downtown hotel's business center hummed with the quiet sound of computers and climate control. Brad sat across from Maggie, watching as she methodically arranged documents on the polished conference table between them. 3 days had passed since their initial meeting, and they'd used every minute to prepare. Their arrogance makes this almost too easy, Maggie said, tapping a stack of printed emails. They didn't even bother using secure accounts. Brad leaned forward, examining the latest batch of evidence. How many people are on your distribution list? 57. Maggie's smile held no warmth. Every member of Darren's church group, the entire PDA board, his golf club associates, all the friends who've been covering for them. What about her office? Already handled. She slid a USB drive across the table. Complete employee directory for her marketing firm, including personal email addresses. Someone really should tell their IT department about better password security. Brad pocketed the drive. You're good at this? I had a life before I became Mrs. Darren Ward. Maggie's eyes hardened. Corporate intelligence. The kind of work that teaches you how secrets can destroy empires. Then let's build our empire of destruction. Brad opened his laptop. I've drafted the initial email. Want to review it? Maggie moved to his side of the table, her perfume carrying notes of something expensive and subtle, nothing like Kara's new fragrance. She leaned over his shoulder, reading. Dear friend, we believe you should know the truth about Darren Ward and Kara Connor. Their affair has been ongoing for months, resulting in a pregnancy they planned to hide through deception. Attached, you'll find proof of their betrayal. Too formal, Maggie interrupted. Make it personal. Make it hurt. She reached past him and began typing. You know them as pillars of our community. The successful businessman and the rising marketing executive. The devoted husband and loving wife. But you don't know what they really are. Liars, cheaters, manipulators who thought they could play us for fools. Brad watched her fingers fly across the keyboard. Better. Much better. We need to time this perfectly, Maggie continued. Kara's promotion interview is next Thursday. Darren has that charity gala on Friday, where he's receiving the Community Leader Award. Maximum impact. Brad nodded. Hit them when they're most visible, most vulnerable. Exactly. Maggie straightened up, smoothing her blazer. But first, we need to talk about the financial arrangements. I've been speaking with my attorney. She returned to her side of the table and pulled out another folder. Darren's been shifting money around, trying to hide assets. Amateur moves. He doesn't know I've been tracking every transaction for months. Kara's been doing the same, Brad replied. Opened a new account last week. Probably thinking ahead to the divorce. Let them try to hide. Maggie's voice carried a note of satisfaction. I've already frozen our joint accounts. The look on his face when his credit card was declined at lunch yesterday. Priceless. Brad's phone buzzed his burner phone, not his regular one. The message was from their private investigator. Meeting confirmed. Target entering Hotel Belmont. 2:15 p.m. Female companion matches provided description. They're getting sloppy, Brad commented, showing Maggie the message. Using the same hotel repeatedly. Of course they are. Maggie pulled up a calendar on her laptop. They think they're safe. Darren told me he's at a business lunch with clients. Kara? Client presentation downtown. Brad's laugh held no humor. Same lies, different day. Perfect. Maggie began typing again, adding it to the evidence timeline. Date, time, location. We're building quite the detailed picture of their affair. A knock at the conference room door made them both look up. The hotel manager entered, carrying a folder. Mr. Connor? The documents you requested from our security department? Thank you, James. Brad accepted the folder, sliding an envelope across the table. The manager nodded and left discreetly. Hotel security footage? Maggie asked. Better. Brad opened the folder, revealing check-in records and room service bills. Every time they've used this hotel chain in the past 6 months, complete with timestamps and credit card details. This is going to destroy them. Maggie's voice carried a note of satisfaction. That's the point. Brad began sorting through the new evidence. They thought they could play us for fools. Time to show them exactly who they're dealing with. Speaking of which, Maggie pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages. Darren's been trying to reach me all morning. Listen to this, Maggie, we need to talk. I know things have been strained between us lately. Let me explain over dinner tonight. Brad's expression darkened. Kara sent something similar yesterday. Brad, please come home. We can work through this. What we have is worth saving. They're panicking, Maggie observed. Good. That means they're vulnerable. When people panic, they make mistakes. More evidence for us to collect. Brad stood, walking to the window. The city sprawled below, unknowing participants in their drama. Have you thought about what happens after? Once we've destroyed them? Maggie joined him at the window, her reflection overlapping with his in the glass. I've received an offer from a firm in Boston. Clean slate, fresh start. You. Chicago office wants me to head their new division. Been considering it for a while. Running away. There was a challenge in her voice. Brad turned to face her. Strategic retreat. Let them live in the ruins of their reputation. We'll be too busy building new lives to care. Speaking of ruined reputations, Maggie returned to her laptop. I've been working on a little surprise for Kara's promotion interview. Want to see? Brad moved closer, reading over her shoulder as Maggie outlined their next move. Outside, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the city. Somewhere out there, Kara and Darren were playing out their affair. Thinking they had all the time in the world, they had no idea that time was running out. The marketing firm's gleaming office tower reflected the morning sun as Brad watched from his parked car. Employees streamed through the revolving doors, most clutching coffee cups and checking phones. At 8:45 a.m., right on schedule, Kara's red Tesla pulled into her reserved parking spot. His burner phone vibrated. Everything in place? Maggie's text read, just watched her arrive. You. Darren left for his board meeting 10 minutes ago. Looking quite confident in his new suit, Brad smiled grimly. Not for long. Sending the emails now. He opened his laptop and connected to a secure network. The email distribution lists they'd compiled were organized by impact-level professional contacts first, then social circles, finally family and close friends. Their message would cascade through the community like a virus, destroying carefully built reputations with surgical precision. His phone rang Maggie's burner number. Status? She asked without preamble. First wave sent. Her entire office, the client list, everyone on the upcoming project's roster. Brad watched another group of employees enter the building. What about your end? Just finished. Board members, business partners, every contact in his phone. Maggie's voice held a note of satisfaction, including that pretty young intern he's been mentoring. How long until they notice? Already starting. My source in Darren's office says people are checking their phones during the board meeting. Lots of whispers, sidelong looks. Brad's attention was drawn to movement near the building's entrance. 2 security guards were approaching Kara's car. Something's happening here too, he reported. Security's moving. Want to switch to video chat? Absolutely. They connected, sharing a split-screen view of their respective surveillance positions. Brad angled his phone to show Kara stepping out of her car, her confident stride faltering as the guards approached. Ms. Connor. The guard's voice carried across the parking lot. Management needs to see you immediately. What's this about? Kara's voice held a note of confusion. I have a client meeting in 20 minutes. Meeting's been canceled, ma'am. Please come with us. Through the phone, Brad could hear Maggie's quiet laugh. Darren's getting similar treatment. Board meeting just went into emergency session without him. They watched as Kara was escorted inside, her head high, but her hands clutching her designer bag like a shield. Brad switched camera views to show the building's lobby, where employees were gathering in small clusters. Phones out, conversations hushed. Think she knows yet? Maggie asked. Give it 2 minutes. Brad checked his watch. Her assistant always brings her morning coffee about now. Right on cue, a young woman hurried through the lobby, tablet in hand. She paused to check her phone, face paling as she presumably opened her email. There it is, Brad commented. Watch how fast word spreads. The assistant rushed to join a group of colleagues, showing them her screen. Heads bent together, expressions shocked. One woman covered her mouth. Another pulled out her own phone to check. Same thing happening here, Maggie reported, her camera showing Darren's office building. He just got called out of the board meeting. Should see him any minute. Wait there. Her video showed Darren striding down a hallway, his usual confidence notably absent. A security guard followed close behind. Mr. Ward, a woman's voice called out. Is it true about the affair? About the baby? Darren froze, then turned slowly. What are you talking about? It's all over email, another voice added. Everyone's received proof. Pictures, hotel receipts, everything. Brad switched back to his view of Kara's building. She was visible through the lobby windows now, standing in the middle of a group of executives. Even from a distance, her body language screamed distress. Brad, Maggie's voice held an edge of excitement. Check your other phone. The private investigator just sent something interesting. He pulled out his second burner phone, finding a series of photos. They showed Darren and Kara at their hotel meetup the previous day. But these were different, intimate moments caught through windows, secret touches in what they thought were private spaces. Add these to the second wave, he asked. Definitely. Along with the credit card statements showing exactly how much company money Darren spent on their little rendezvous. Nice touch. Brad began composing the follow-up email. I've got something special for Wave 3 Kara's ultrasound photos, time-stamped and matched with hotel receipts showing where the baby was likely conceived. You're evil. Maggie's tone held approval. I love it. Movement caught Brad's attention. Kara was leaving the building, security escort still in place. Her face was ghost white, mascara smeared from crying. Show's starting here, he reported. She's headed to her car. Darren too, Maggie replied. But he's not alone. Looks like the board sent legal with him. They watched in shared satisfaction as their spouses' worlds crumbled in real time. Kara fumbled with her car keys, dropping them twice before managing to unlock the door. Darren was gesturing angrily at a man in a suit, who simply kept pointing to a document in his hand. Time for phase 2? Maggie asked. On my mark. Brad opened another email draft. This one would go to their personal contacts, friends, family members, everyone who had ever supported their relationship. Remember, timing is everything, Speaking of timing, Maggie's voice held a hint of amusement. Darren's mistress just arrived at his office. Soon she got the email too. Brad switched views to watch as Kara screeched out of the parking lot, nearly hitting a lamppost in her haste to escape. "Where do you think they'll go?" he asked. "Their special hotel, probably. To compare notes, plan damage control. Already covered." Brad smiled coldly. "Sent copies of everything to hotel management this morning. They're not welcome there anymore." His phone pinged with another message. Janet, Kara's mother, demanding to know what was happening. He added her to the next distribution list. "Ready for wave 2? Maggie asked. Brad watched as more people poured out of both buildings, phones pressed to ears, faces shocked and scandalized. Their carefully crafted messages were spreading through social media now. Hashtags forming organically as the story took on a life of its own. "Send it," he commanded. "Let's see how they handle this one." Together, they pressed send on their synchronized emails, launching the next phase of their destruction. Through their phone cameras, they watched their targets' worlds continue to unravel, piece by carefully orchestrated piece. "Brad," Maggie's voice had grown thoughtful. "Do you ever wonder if this is too much? Do you remember what they were planning?" He countered. "How they were going to use us. Make me raise their child. Make you watch as they played happy family with your husband's baby." "You're right." Her tone hardened again. "No mercy. None at all." Brad started composing the third wave of emails. "They chose this path. We're just making sure they walk it alone." Through the cameras, they continued their surveillance. Architects of destruction watching their plans unfold with perfect precision. The hotel suite Brad had converted into their command center hummed with activity. 3 laptops displayed different social media feeds, each screen chronicling the destruction of Kara and Darren's reputations in real time. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the evidence boards they constructed on the walls. "You need to see this," Maggie called from her position by the window. She held out her phone, displaying a local news website. "They're picking up the story." Brad moved to read over her shoulder. The headline made him smile. "Local business leader caught in scandal. Board calls emergency meeting." "Darren must be loving that," he commented. "How's the stock price looking?" "Down 12% since this morning." Maggie switched to a financial app. Their shareholders aren't happy about the CEO having an affair with a married woman, especially not with all those hotel charges on the company card. Brad's burner phone buzzed. A text from their private investigator. "Targets located. Meeting at Riverside Park. Looks heated. Want to take a drive?" Maggie asked, already reaching for her coat. "Wouldn't miss it." They took separate cars to maintain deniability. Brad parked near the north entrance, while Maggie positioned herself by the south gate. Through their video chat, they coordinated their surveillance. "Visual confirmed," Brad reported, watching Kara pace near the park's central fountain. Her designer outfit was wrinkled, makeup streaked with tears. "She looks distressed." "Darren's approaching from the south lot," Maggie replied. "No suit jacket. Tie loosened. He's been running his hands through his hair, a classic stress tell." They watched through their phones as their spouses met. Even from a distance, the tension was visible in their body language. "Turn up your directional mic," Brad instructed. "I want to hear this." Kara's voice came through first, high and panicked. "Everything, Darren. They know everything. My boss just suspended me pending an ethics investigation. The promotion is gone. My career is ruined. Keep your voice down." Darren grabbed her arm, looking around nervously. "We need to think this through. Figure out who's behind it." "Behind it? Are you serious?" Kara wrenched away from him. "Brad knows. He found out about the baby. And now everyone knows, my friends, my family, my colleagues. My mother won't stop calling. Did you see what they're saying about us online?" "It's just gossip." Darren tried to sound soothing. "We can control the narrative. Issue a statement. Get ahead of it." Kara's laugh held an edge of hysteria. "They have proof, Darren. Hotel receipts, photos, everything. The board knows you use company resources to fund our affair. Your wife, don't talk about Maggie." Darren's voice sharpened. "She's not answering my calls. Won't let me into the house. Her lawyer sent a notice this morning. She's filing for divorce. Join the club." Kara sank onto a bench, head in her hands. "Brad's gone. Completely vanished." Left his ring on my pillow with a note saying he knows everything. He's probably talking to divorce lawyers right now. Brad and Maggie exchanged satisfied looks through their video chat. Should we move to phase 3? Maggie asked softly. Perfect timing. Brad opened his laptop, connecting to the park's public Wi-Fi. They're already destabilized. This should push them over the edge. He pressed send on their next wave of emails. Within seconds, both Kara and Darren's phones began buzzing. They watched as their targets checked their devices, faces draining of color. No, Kara whispered, loud enough for the directional mic to pick up. No. They can't have these. The ultrasound photos, our private messages, the board meeting recordings. Darren's voice was hollow. From when we planned how to... Oh, God. What are we going to do? Kara's voice cracked. I'm pregnant with your baby. Everyone knows. And our lives are falling apart. Maybe. Darren ran his hands through his hair again. Maybe we should leave. Start fresh somewhere else. I have contacts. Kara stood abruptly. Your contacts are all receiving evidence of how you embezzled company money to fund our affair. Your business reputation is destroyed. My career is over. We're toxic now. Don't you understand? Brad's phone buzzed with a news alert. Check the business feeds, he told Maggie. It's happening. Got it, she replied. Board's releasing a statement. Effective immediately. Darren Ward has been suspended from all duties pending investigation into financial impropriety and ethical violations. They watched as Darren received the same notification. His knees seemed to buckle, and he had to grab the bench for support. It's over, he said, his voice distant. Everything I've built gone. Darren? Kara reached for him, but he stepped away. Don't. His voice was cold now. This is your fault. If you hadn't gotten pregnant, my fault? Kara's voice rose again. You promised we'd be together. Said you'd leave Maggie, that we'd raise this baby. Well, that plan's shot to hell now, isn't it? Darren straightened his tie with shaking hands. I need to talk to my lawyer. Try to salvage something from this mess. So that's it? Kara called after him as he turned to leave. You're just walking away? What did you expect? Darren didn't look back. A happy ending? Brad and Maggie watched in satisfaction as their targets separated, each walking quickly toward their cars. Both were too absorbed in their own crumbling worlds to notice their observers. Send the final batch? Maggie asked. Not yet. Brad closed his laptop. Let this sink in first. Let them feel the full weight of what they've lost. Tomorrow morning, when they think it can't get worse, we destroy whatever's left. Maggie's smile was cold. I like how you think. They packed up their surveillance equipment and headed back to the hotel. Their phones kept buzzing with updates, social media exploding with the scandal, news outlets picking up the story, mutual friends choosing sides and severing connections. Brad, Maggie said as they reached their cars. Did you see their faces when they realized nobody was going to help them cover this up? When they understood they'd have to face the consequences alone? Just like they planned to let us face our humiliation alone. Brad checked his watch. The difference is we're better at this game than they are. Much better, Maggie agreed. Meet you back at Command Central? We should prepare tomorrow's final strike. Brad nodded, already anticipating the last phase of their revenge. One more day, he said. One more push. And there'll be nothing left of their perfect little fantasy world. They drove away separately, leaving their devastated spouses to navigate the ruins of their reputations. Phase 2 had succeeded beyond their expectations. Phase 3 would ensure there was no possibility of recovery. Dawn painted the hotel suite in shades of gray as Brad and Maggie prepared for their final strike. Coffee cups littered the conference table, evidence of their all-night planning session. Their laptops displayed multiple email drafts, each carefully crafted to deliver maximum damage. The timing has to be perfect, Maggie said, checking her watch. Darren's emergency board meeting starts in 2 hours, and Kara's HR review is at 9. Brad pulled up their target timeline. Did you get confirmation about the press? Better. Maggie handed him her tablet. Local news already has the story queued. Corporate scandal rocks community. CEO's secret affair leads to financial investigation. Brad scrolled through the article. They're not pulling any punches. Stock prices, potential criminal charges, quotes from anonymous board members. Amazing what people will reveal when they think they're protecting the company's interests. Maggie's smile was sharp. Darren's former friends are suddenly very chatty. Brad's burner phone buzzed with a message from their private investigator. Target spotted at Meridian Coffee. Separate tables. Both look rough. Want to see the show? Maggie was already reaching for her coat. Wouldn't miss it. The coffee shop sat across from Darren's office building. Brad and Maggie took positions at different vantage points, maintaining their video chat connection. Visual on Kara, Brad reported. Northwest corner. She's been crying. Darren's by the window, Maggie replied. Reading something on his phone. His hands are shaking. They watched as their targets tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy, unaware that their worlds were about to implode further. Send it. Brad commanded. Maggie press send on their final email blast. Seconds later, phones throughout the coffee shop began buzzing. They watched as both Kara and Darren checked their devices. No. Kara's voice carried through the window. They can't. How did they get these? Darren stood so abruptly his chair toppled backward. Other customers turned to stare as he strode to Kara's table. What did you do? He demanded, voice tight with panic. Me? Kara looked up, mascara streaked across her cheeks. I didn't do anything. Those were private messages, private photos. They have everything. Darren slammed his hand on the table. The offshore account details, the fake expense reports, our plans about the baby, Mr. Ward. A young barista approached nervously. Sir, you need to calm down or leave. Calm down? Darren laughed, the sound brittle. My life is over. The board is meeting right now to fire me. The SEC is investigating our financials. My wife has excellent timing. Maggie murmured, pressing send on another email. They watched as Darren's phone buzzed again. His face went from red to white as he read the message. No. He staggered back. The house, the accounts, what? Kara grabbed her own phone. What's happening? Maggie's lawyers. Darren's voice was hollow. She's frozen everything. The houses, the cars, the investment accounts. Even my personal accounts are locked pending the fraud investigation. She can't do that. She can when there's evidence of financial crimes. Darren sank into a chair. She knew. She's been gathering evidence for months. And now, Brad pressed send on their next salvo. More phones buzzed. More gas from other customers. Oh God. Kara's voice cracked. The ultrasound photos, our private messages, they're all over social media. My mother. My friends. Time for the coup de grace? Maggie asked through their video chat. Do it? The final email went out, this one to Darren's entire client list. Complete with documented evidence of how he'd misused their investments to fund his affair. They watched as both phones buzzed one final time. Kara read the message and burst into fresh tears. Darren looked like he'd been shot. My clients, he whispered. They're all leaving. Everyone's pulling their accounts. Darren, please. Kara reached for him. We need to stick together. Figure this out. That he jerked away from her touch. Stay away from me. This is your fault. If you hadn't gotten pregnant, my fault. Kara stood, anger replacing tears. You promised we'd be together. Said you'd leave her. That we'd be a family. Family? Darren's laugh was ugly. Look around. We've lost everything. Our jobs, our reputations, our future's gone. And you think we can play happy family? The baby is not my problem. Darren straightened his tie with shaking hands. I have to try to save something from this disaster. And I can't do that with you hanging around my neck. Brad and Maggie exchanged satisfied glances through their video chat as they watched their target's relationship implode. You bastard. Kara's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You absolute coward. Call me whatever you want. Darren headed for the door. Just stay away from me. Where are you going? To beg my lawyers to save what's left of my career. He paused at the door. Don't contact me again. Ever. The coffee shop fell silent as Darren stormed out. Kara stood frozen, one hand pressed to her stomach, as dozens of strangers pretended not to stare. Mission accomplished? Maggie asked softly. Almost. Brad pressed send on one final email. This one to Kara's entire extended family, including the judgmental aunts and cousins she'd always tried to impress. Now it's done. They watched as Kara gathered her things with trembling hands and fled the coffee shop. Neither she nor Darren had noticed their observers, too consumed by their own destruction to see anything else. Back to Command Central, Maggie was already moving toward her car. One more stop first. Brad pulled up his calendar. Kara's HR review starts in 20 minutes. Want to watch the final nail being driven into her career? Wouldn't miss it. Maggie's smile was cold. After all, we worked so hard to arrange it. They drove separately to Kara's office building, taking up observation positions in time to watch her arrive. Her confident stride was gone, replaced by the uncertain steps of someone whose world had crumbled to ash. Amazing, Maggie commented through their video chat. How quickly they fall apart when their lies are exposed. They thought they were so clever, Brad replied, watching Kara enter the building, never realizing they were just actors in our play. Speaking of plays, Maggie checked her phone. Darren's board meeting is getting interesting. Want to see the live updates? Brad smiled, a predator's expression. Show me everything. Their revenge was complete. Their targets were destroyed. And somewhere in the city, two people who had thought themselves cunning enough to deceive everyone were learning a harsh lesson about underestimating their prey. 1 month after their campaign of destruction began, Brad sat across from Maggie in their hotel command center, reviewing the aftermath of their revenge. The wall-mounted screens displayed news articles, social media feeds, and financial reports, a digital tapestry of ruination. Darren's trying to salvage something, Maggie reported, scanning her tablet. Applied for a position at Morton and Shaw yesterday. Brad looked up from his laptop. The investment firm? Bold move. Also a futile one. Maggie's smile was razor sharp. I had a very interesting conversation with their HR director this morning. Anonymous tip about his history of financial misconduct. How did that go? His application was shredded within the hour. She set down her tablet. He's also tried Richardson Group and Apex Partners. Same result. Brad nodded, pulling up his own reports. Kara's not faring any better. 3 interviews last week, all canceled after receiving detailed information about her ethical violations. From anonymous sources, of course. Of course, Brad stood, walking to the evidence wall, where photos and documents chronicled their target's downfall. Any word from the SEC investigation? Officially, they're still reviewing the evidence. Maggie joined him at the wall. Unofficially, my contact says Darren's looking at serious charges. The board's internal audit revealed irregularities he created to fund their affair. Among other things, Maggie pointed to a financial statement. Look here, he's been siphoning money for years. The affair just made him sloppy. Brad's burner phone buzzed with a text from their private investigator. Target case spotted at River Heights. Appears to be apartment hunting. River Heights? Brad's laugh held no humor. That's quite a step down from her luxury condo. Speaking of housing, Maggie pulled up a real estate listing. Darren's trying to sell his boat, not finding many buyers willing to touch anything with his name on it. Poor Darren. Brad's voice dripped sarcasm. From community leader to social pariah in just 4 weeks. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Room service entered with fresh coffee and their requested lunch. As the waiter arranged their meals, multiple phones buzzed with incoming messages. Once they were alone again, Maggie checked her alerts. Well, looks like someone's desperate. Listen to this email Darren just sent to his former business partner. She read aloud. James, please, I'm begging you to reconsider. 20 years of friendship has to count for something. I can explain everything if you'll just meet with me. Any response? Oh, yes. Maggie's smile widened. Mr. Ward, as my lawyers have made clear, I cannot have any contact with you during the ongoing investigation. Please do not attempt to communicate with me or any other members of the board. Brad pulled up his own messages. Kara's getting similar responses. Her industry contacts are running scared. No one wants to risk association with her scandal. Have you seen her latest social media posts? Maggie opened Instagram on one of the wall screens. She's trying to paint herself as the victim. Poor pregnant woman abandoned by her lover. The comments are not sympathetic, Brad observed, scanning the responses. especially since we leaked those messages where she bragged about tricking me into raising their baby. That was a masterful touch. Maggie raised her coffee cup in salute. The court of public opinion can be so cruel. Their private investigator sent another update. Target D leaving Morgan Stanley. Meeting rejected. Heading to parking lot now. Brad switched to their surveillance feed, showing Darren walking to his car, no longer the luxury BMW, but a modest rental. His designer suit looked wrinkled, his confident stride replaced by defeated shuffling. Should we move to the final phase? Maggie asked. Timing feels right. Brad opened his laptop. They're both vulnerable, desperate for any chance at rebuilding, which makes this the perfect moment to crush those hopes completely. Maggie began typing. I've prepared dossiers on their potential employers. Every company they might approach. Every connection they might try to leverage. Send them all. Brad's voice was cold. Let's make sure they can't even get jobs as baristas. They worked in synchronized efficiency, sending carefully crafted emails to HR departments, hiring managers, and industry contacts across the country. Each message contained detailed evidence of their target's misconduct, ensuring their professional exile would be complete. Brad, Maggie called out suddenly, check your email. Kara sent something to your regular account. He pulled up the message on a separate screen. Brad, please. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I'm begging you to talk to me. One conversation. That's all I'm asking. I've lost everything. My job, my friends, my family's respect. I'm pregnant and alone. Darren won't even take my calls anymore. You were always the better man. Please show mercy. Mercy? Brad's laugh was harsh. Like the mercy they showed us? The mercy they planned to show our reputations while they played happy family with their love child. Delete it, Maggie advised. She's trying to appeal to your better nature. My better nature died the day I found that pregnancy test. Brad highlighted the email and hit delete. Besides, we're not finished yet. No, Maggie agreed, turning back to her laptop. We're not. Ready for the coup de grace? Brad nodded, pulling up their final list of targets. Every potential employer, every business contact, every social connection their former spouses might try to rebuild with. Send them all, he commanded. Let's make sure they never recover from this. As they launched their final assault, Brad allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. Kara and Darren had thought themselves clever, playing with people's lives like pieces on a chessboard. They were about to learn that some pieces refused to be sacrificed and struck back with devastating force. The private dining room at the Grand Meridian Hotel offered perfect privacy for what Brad and Maggie called their victory dinner. Crystal glasses caught the light from elaborate chandeliers, while their target's destruction played out on their phones and tablets. Another rejection letter, Maggie announced, checking her alerts. Darren tried applying at Fisher & Sons in Chicago. They responded within minutes. Apparently, someone sent them a comprehensive file about his indiscretions. Brad swirled his whiskey, watching the amber liquid catch the light. How's he taking it? See for yourself. Maggie turned her tablet to show a security camera feed. Darren sat in his rental car, parked outside the Fisher & Sons building, head resting on the steering wheel. That's his fourth rejection today. Any word from his lawyer? Better. Maggie's smile was predatory. The SEC investigation is moving forward. They're considering criminal charges for the financial misconduct. His attorney suggesting he plea bargain. Their private investigators update pinged. Target K leaving doctor's appointment. Headed to coffee shop on 8th. Want to see the show? Brad checked his watch. We have time before the next phase. The coffee shop was small, tucked between two office buildings. Brad and Maggie took their usual separate positions, maintaining video contact through their phones. Visual on Kara, Brad reported. Northwest corner table. Looking at her laptop. Probably job hunting, Maggie observed. Not that it'll do any good. They watched as Kara scrolled through job listings, her face growing increasingly desperate. Her designer clothes, once immaculate, showed signs of wear. The expensive handbag was gone, replaced by a canvas tote that Brad's phone buzzed a message from Janet, Kara's mother. Bradley, please. Whatever Kara did, she's still carrying your grandchild. Show some compassion. Delete that, Maggie advised, watching his reaction through their video chat. She's still trying to manipulate you with the baby's story. Already gone. Brad's voice was ice. Just like their plans to make me raise their bastard. Movement at the coffee shop entrance caught their attention. Darren walked in, his formerly pristine appearance now decidedly disheveled. Well, this should be interesting, Maggie murmured. They watched as Darren approached Kara's table. Even from a distance, the tension was visible in every line of his body. We need to talk, he said, loud enough for their directional mics to pick up. Kara looked up, her expression hardening. Now you want to talk? After weeks of ignoring my calls? Keep it down. Darren glanced around nervously before sitting. Have you seen the SEC announcements? Have I seen them? Kara's laugh was bitter. It's all over the financial news. Prominent CEO faces criminal investigation. Hard to miss. This is serious, Kara. They're talking about prison time. Funny how that works. She closed her laptop. When you're using company money to fund your affair, eventually someone notices. Don't. Darren's voice was sharp. Don't act like you didn't know where the money came from. All those hotels, restaurants, gifts, at least I still have my freedom, Kara shot back. Unlike you, I'm not facing criminal charges. No, you're just a social and professional pariah. Darren's smile was cruel. How's the job hunt going? Any marketing firms willing to hire the woman who tried to trick her husband into raising another man's child? Brad and Maggie exchanged satisfied glances through their video chat as they watched their targets tear into each other. This is your fault, Kara hissed. You promised we'd be together. Said you'd leave Maggie. That we'd be a family. Family? Darren scoffed. Look at us. I'm about to be indicted. You can't get hired anywhere. Our reputations are destroyed. What kind of family could we possibly have? I'm carrying your child. Lower your voice. Darren looked around frantically. Besides, how do I even know it's mine? Maybe you were planning to trick me too. The slap echoed through the coffee shop. Heads turned as Kara stood, trembling with rage. How dare you? She whispered. After everything we've lost, you dare question. Question what? Darren touched his reddened cheek. Your honesty? Your loyalty? Funny coming from a woman who was going to lie to her husband about her baby's paternity. Time to add fuel to the fire. Maggie asked through their video chat. Do it. They watched as both Kara and Darren's phones buzzed with new notifications. More rejections, more closed doors, more evidence that their professional and social exile was complete. Another law firm declined to represent me, Darren said, scanning his phone. How is this happening? Every contact, every connection. Same here. Kara's voice cracked. Even entry-level positions, they all know. Someone keeps warning them about me. Someone very thorough, Darren mused. Someone who knew exactly how to destroy us. Brad, Kara whispered. And Maggie. They planned this. All of it. Took them long enough to figure it out, Maggie commented to Brad. Ready for the final touch. Brad pressed send on their last prepared email. Seconds later, their target's phones buzzed again. No! Darren's face went pale. The charity board, they're publicizing everything. Making a formal statement about my moral and ethical failures. The marketing association, too. Kara's voice was hollow. They're revoking my membership, citing professional misconduct and ethical violations. They watched as their targets sat in stunned silence, the full weight of their destruction finally settling on their shoulders. We're finished, Darren said finally. Completely, utterly finished. What do we do now? Kara asked, one hand unconsciously moving to her stomach. Darren stood, straightening his wrinkled tie. There is no we anymore. You're on your own. Just like that? After everything is gone, Kara. And you. He looked down at her with cold eyes. You're just another reminder of what I lost. They watched him walk away, leaving Kara alone at the table. She sat there for a long moment, then began to cry quiet, desperate sobs that spoke of complete defeat. Mission accomplished? Maggie asked softly. Almost. Brad checked the time. One more card to play. Ready to end this? Lead the way. Maggie gathered her things. Let's finish what they started. They left their observation posts, their targets oblivious to how closely their destruction had been orchestrated. The end was in sight. And it would be even more devastating than the beginning. The evening sun cast long shadows across the hotel's rooftop bar as Brad and Maggie prepared for their final act of revenge. The city stretched out below them, unaware of the drama playing out in its midst. Their laptops displayed the last pieces of their carefully orchestrated destruction. Darren's lawyer called, Maggie announced, setting down her phone. They're offering a plea deal. Seems the SEC investigation uncovered more than even we knew about. Brad looked up from his screen. How bad? 5 years minimum, plus full restitution of the embezzled funds. She smiled coldly. The mighty CEO, brought down by his own greed and stupidity. And Kara, see for yourself. Maggie turned her tablet to show a social media post. She's selling her designer clothes online, trying to scrape together enough money for a security deposit on that apartment in River Heights. Their private investigators' update arrived. Both targets confirmed for location. Proceeding as planned, Brad checked his watch. Right on schedule. Shall we? They took the elevator down to the hotel's main restaurant, where they'd arranged their final confrontation. Through the glass walls, they could see Kara already seated at a corner table, nervously shredding a napkin. Darren just pulled up, Maggie reported, checking her phone, looking rather worse for wear. They watched as Darren entered, his once immaculate appearance now decidedly shabby. His eyes darted around the restaurant before spotting Kara. Remember, Brad said quietly, let them dig their own graves. They took their seats at a discreet distance, close enough to hear, but positioned to remain unnoticed. Their targets were too absorbed in their own drama to notice anything else. You're late, Kara said as Darren sat down. Traffic. He loosened his tie. Why did you insist on meeting here? Because it's the last place anyone would look for us. She leaned forward. We need to talk about what we're going to do. Do? Darren's laugh was harsh. What exactly do you think we can do? I'm facing prison time. You're unemployable. Our reputations are destroyed. We could leave, Kara suggested desperately. Start fresh somewhere else. With the baby, stop. Darren's voice was ice. There is no we anymore. No future. No fresh start. It's over. Just like that? After everything you promised? Promises? He scoffed. Wake up, Kara. Look what our promises got us. I've lost everything. My company, my reputation, my freedom. The board is demanding millions in restitution. My own lawyer says I'll be lucky to avoid a decade in prison. But I'm pregnant with your child. A child I can't support from a prison cell. Darren's eyes were cold. Besides, wasn't that your specialty? Finding men to support your children? The slap echoed through the restaurant. Heads turned as Kara stood, trembling with rage. How dare you? She whispered. You said you loved me. Love. Darren touched his reddened cheek. Love doesn't destroy everything it touches. We didn't love each other, Kara. We just loved the excitement, the secrecy, the thrill of getting away with it. Brad and Maggie exchanged satisfied glances as they watched their target's relationship crumble. Time for the finale. Maggie asked softly. Brad nodded, pressing send on their last prepared message. Seconds later, both Kara and Darren's phones buzzed. No! Kara's face went white as she read. They can't. How did they? What now? Darren grabbed his own phone. His hands shook as he scrolled. God, no! They were reading the final nails in their coffins, comprehensive dossiers sent to every potential employer, every social connection, every possible avenue of escape. Their exile was complete and permanent. Brad and Maggie, Darren said finally. They orchestrated all of this. Every detail. Every destruction. They destroyed us, Kara whispered. No. Darren stood, his chair scraping back. We destroyed ourselves. They just made sure we paid for it. Where are you going? To meet with the prosecutors. Maybe if I cooperate fully. He straightened his tie with trembling hands. Goodbye, Kara. Don't try to contact me again. They watched as Darren walked away, leaving Kara alone at the table. She sat there, one hand pressed to her stomach, tears streaming down her face. Shall we? Brad stood, offering Maggie his arm. They walked past Kara's table, making sure she saw them. Her gasp of recognition was audible. Brad! Her voice cracked. Brad, please, he stopped but didn't turn. Please what, Kara? Please forgive you? Please help you? Please raise another man's child while you played happy family with your lover. I'm sorry. Sorry you did it? Or sorry you got caught? Maggie's voice was eyes. You. Kara looked between them, realization dawning. You two planned this. All of it. Consider it karma, Brad said coldly. You played with our lives, tried to use us as convenient covers for your affair. Now you get to live with the consequences. But you've destroyed everything. Yes, Maggie agreed. We have. Every dream, every plan, every escape route you might have had. Thorough, wasn't it? They watched as understanding flooded Kara's face, the complete, devastating understanding of just how completely they'd orchestrated her downfall. Why? She whispered. Because actions have consequences, Brad replied. And you're about to spend the rest of your life living with yours. They walked away, leaving Kara sobbing at the table. Outside, the city lights were coming on, painting the world in shades of possibility. Ready to start our new lives? Maggie asked as they reached their cars. Brad nodded, feeling the weight of revenge lift from his shoulders. Boston for you. Chicago for me? Fresh starts in opposite directions. She smiled. Perfect ending, don't you think? Perfect execution, you mean? Brad checked his watch. Darren should be meeting with prosecutors right about now, while Kara faces a future of complete social and professional exile. Maggie's satisfaction was evident. They thought they were writing a love story. Instead, they starred in a revenge thriller. Brad opened his car door, and we made sure they got the ending they deserved. They parted ways, their mission complete. Behind them, they left the ruins of 2 lives destroyed by their own arrogance. Ahead lay new cities, new opportunities, and the satisfaction of knowing that justice cold, calculating, complete justice had been served. Let Kara and Darren live with the consequences of their choices. Brad and Maggie had better things to do than watch them suffer in the hell they created for themselves.